Hello, my fellow techies. Today we're going to be doing an intro tutorial for the Flask framework in Python. The first thing we want to do is we want to set up our environment. In most cases, this means that we're going to set up a virtual environment. If you've never done this before, the easiest way to do it is to install the virtual env module. So select the version of Python you want. It should be Python 3 at this point. Python 3-m, that just means module. And we're going to select pip install virtual env. We're going to download that. It's already downloaded for me. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create our virtual environment. So to do that, we're going to type virtual env and then the name of our virtual environment. I should also set in for the name of the virtual environment, we'll just do venv for virtual environment. I should say that before I did this, I went into an empty folder that I created specifically for this demo. So the first thing you really should do is you should create a folder for your project and then navigate to your folder from your terminal. Okay, so we navigated to our project folder. We created our virtual environment, and now what we want to do is we want to activate our virtual environment. And the way we do that is with a command called source. So source venv bin activate. Cool. Now you'll see that we get this venv in parentheses over here. That means that we're in our virtual environment. And we're going to want to make sure that we set our Python interpreter to the Python interpreter from our virtual environment. So you can do this by doing Control-Shift-P or Command-Shift-P if you're on a Mac. And you can type in Python select interpreter, and you'll see that it comes up there. You can select that. Let's see what we got here. If you don't see it come up, it might be because we just created it. So what we can do is we can type in the path to the virtual environment. Let's do... So for me, it's going to be documents, programming, GitHub, and then Flask intro venv bin Python. And it looks like it's going to make me type it in again. Okay, there we go. So now that we have our virtual environment set up, we want to install Flask. And the way we do that, very simple, we just do pip install Flask. And this is going to tell us we need to upgrade pip. So pip install -- upgrade pip. Cool. I'm also going to install one more. I'm going to install black, but you don't need to install that one. That's just a formatter that I've set up with VS Code. Okay. So we do that. And now we are ready to create our Flask app. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new file. We're going to call it app.py, which is the generic Pylint is not installed. Yeah, sure, why not? App.py is the generic name for most Flask apps when people are starting out. Cool. Okay. So we want to import Flask. What we'll do is we will say from Flask import Flask. And then we want to create an app variable. So we'll say app equals Flask, and we'll give it a name of __ name __. And what this name does is it represents the name of the file, which is app.py. Okay, so now that we have those two things, we want to define what is our application going to do. So let's define a home page. And this can be as simple as return hello world. And then one more thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to put a decorator on top of this, and it's going to be @app.route, and then where you want it to point to. So we will do / for now. Okay, and then before we can start up our app, there are two more important things we need to do. we need to export Flask underscore app in all uppercase equal to app, which is the name of our file. Okay. And we want to export Flask env equals development. And the reason why we want to do this is so that when our server is running, it will auto reload any changes that we put into Flask into our application instead of us needing to restart our server every time. Okay, so now we're ready to do Flask Run. All right, and yeah, we can see debugger is active. That means that the Flask environment was registered properly. And now what we can do is we can come over to a browser and we can type in localhost 5000, and we see that hello world up there. I don't know if that's too tiny. Hello world. Okay, but what if we want to load an HTML page? Well, in that case, well, let me show you. First, we could type HTML in here if we really wanted to. So if we put an h1 tag around there, then we can refresh and we see this is now an h1 tag. But this obviously is not ideal. We don't want to be writing HTML code in our Python code. That's not optimal. So Flask has this function built into it called render template. And here's what we can do is we can do render template, and we'll do home.html. Now obviously we need to write a file called home.html. And this file, or sorry, this function will look for a folder called templates. So if we come over here, we create a new folder, we'll call it templates, and then inside of templates, we'll create a new file called home.html. And VS Code is very, very convenient. We can type in HTML, and we can do this HTML:5 selection right here, and that'll auto load an HTML template for us. And now we can do that same thing we did before. We can do an h1 tag, and we can say, hello world. So now we have this saved. We come back over here and we notice it shifted a little bit because we have a little bit more formatting now. We now have a body tag in there, an HTML tag, but we have our hello world still. Let me, I guess, do something different. Hello, person watching this tutorial. Break the fourth wall a little bit. And we see that loads. So we know we are loading from this home.html. Let's just make this a little prettier. There's something called Bootstrap. We can just Google Bootstrap. And let's do get started. We could just put in the CSS and the JS, but we could also just copy the starter template from here. So just copy and paste this. Option 1, option 2. So we can delete this. This isn't necessary. Option 2. Okay. Save that. And now we'll see hello world. We see the font changed. Okay. So one more thing that we can do that I'll leave you with before I say go have fun with Flask is how do we get data from Python into an HTML page? I like to use a variable called context. You can call it whatever you want though. You can call it data. You can call it, I don't know, info, whatever you want. I tend to call it context because it's context for the web page. And we could do something like name and set this equal to Boruto. Can you tell I'm an anime fan? Age, I don't know how old he is, 14, 12, something like that. We'll say Shinobi. Set this equal to true. I hope at least one person who watches this is a Boruto fan. And then what we want to do, so we have context here. Now what we want to do is we want to say context equals context, or we can say data equals context. It doesn't matter. I'll say data equals context so that you can get the idea. Let's add one more thing in there so it formats a little prettier. Let's do type. I think he's a lightning guy. Okay, cool. No, I'm going to change this to context. Context equals context. Okay, so now what we can do is instead of hello world, we could type in context.name. What did we get? What did I do wrong? True. Oh, I forgot a comma. Ah, man, it's still formatted weird. Okay. It's ugly, but it's okay. But now we see hello Barto. And if we come back here, we can put in all this information. We'll do it in p tags this time. We'll say, what did we have? We had age, so we'll have context.age. We had type, we'll have context.type. And then we'll do, what was it? Shinobi context.shinobi. All right, and the way we load this, remember that double curly bracket. Make sure you have those on both sides. Cool. And now we see we get that information in there. Let's, hold on, one more thing. Let's bootstrap thing, div container with a class, sorry, div tag with a class called container. Okay. There we go. It looks a little better. Hello, Barto, age 14, type lightning, Shinobi, true. And if you wanted to play around with Bootstrap a little more, that could be cool. You could come to components. What do websites normally have? Nav Bars. So we'll say, let's just pick one of these. Let's do, I guess this one. Let's put this inside of our container. Now we see we have a nav bar, has a drop-down link in there, or a couple drop-down links. Bootstrap is fun. You can do all kinds of things in here. What else do they got? An accordion. Oh, that looks cool. Yeah, let's do that one. Copy. Paste. Look at that. Now we have an accordion in here. I'm telling you guys, Flask is cool. I know you already think that because you went through the tutorial, but there's a lot you can do with this, and we are only just scratching the surface. So I hope you enjoyed this beginner tutorial. If you got any value out of it, if you learned more about Flask, how to use it, if I answered any of your questions, please like, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Peace.